13 Questions by Man Transcending. Manhood in the Digital Age. Welcome back to the podcast 13 Questions. It's been a minute since we've been here between hurricanes, migraines, and the good old personal life jumping in the way. It's been a minute since we've been able to get to you, but I am glad that I am back. I'm glad that you are here, continuing to follow 13 Questions. Tonight is a perfect example of the guest that I love to see come on the show. He was ran into by Darren over on Twitter, and he asked him in a private message like, hey, would you like to come on the podcast? And so tonight I have for you an interview with Joe Hart. You can find him on Twitter as Coach Joe Hart. I think I should probably check that. It will be in the show notes as well as his website, but this was a really fun interview. It really evolved as we went along and just got more complex and fun. So I enjoy bringing this one to you. I hope you guys have fun with this. All the good stuff about what you can get for the podcast, we'll mention it after the interview. So stick around and listen to that, but there's tons of goodies, including the bonus questions. So if you like the interview, hey, it's not over. You can get more. 13questionspodcast.com. Become a member and get all the benefits. But you got to stick around to find out what those are. What are they? Oh my gosh, so much. Forums and writing prompts and make your own podcast. Yes, make your own podcast. 13questionspodcast.com. Welcome back to 13 Questions. My name's Adam, and tonight we have with us Joe Hart. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Fantastic. Looking forward to this interview. Was checking out your posts and your motivations, and really intrigued to see how you answer these questions tonight.
It should get pretty interesting.
All right. Well, the first question of the night. What was the best advice ever given to you, and would you modify it today?
Probably recently. I've gotten a lot of great advice over the years, but recently, it was don't undersell your value. Depending on what you're trying to do, whether it's fitness, whether you're working a job, whether you're, whatever you're doing, don't undersell what value you could potentially bring to someone or a company or to the people around you.
I guess that's something you probably see in a lot of people around you, that they, undercut themselves before other people can.
Right. So I see it a lot when people are selling products on social media. But I also see it because I coach competitive cheerleading. I see a lot of athletes undersell what they offer to the team in general, or what abilities they have. And so in addition to being coach, I almost feel like, sometimes I'm not necessarily a parent, but then sometimes like I'm trying to be a motivational speaker at the same time. And a lot of times it's focusing on, hey, this is what you bring to the team. So if you can, pull out the best in you, you're going to pull out the best in your teammates as well.
That's really cool. What was the most important lesson you learned from your parents?
Always work hard. Plain and simple. Probably said a lot. You got to work smarter at times over working hard. But if you're working hard and respecting people, you'll get to places in life. Pretty generic, almost like a platitude, but it is what it is. That's how I got to where I am today. So,
is that something that you always carried with you from your parents, or is that something you had to kind of develop?
That's something that, I heard it over and over again. And then at times in my life, especially my early 20s, I didn't really think about that. So over the past couple of years, it's been back into the developmental stage, and something that I try to focus on every single day.
Awesome. What book has been most influential on your life, and why?
There's it's hard to limit it down. Um, if I go into more of a religion, spiritual type thing, The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis was really good. And if I go into more business and finances, it would either have to be Master the Game by Tony Robbins or Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Awesome. How old were you when you read those books?
The Problem of Pain, I probably read when I was 26 or 27. Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was 24. And Tony Robbins' Master the Game, I was probably 24 at the time as well. I read those in the same year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love hearing that because I think about all the books I've read in my later years and go, if I'd had this book when I was 14, how would this have redirected my life? So I kind of think, I keep that in my mind when I meet younger people that, there might be little things that I can just slip them because if somebody had done it for me, it would just have redirected things in a positive way.
Right. And even if it takes a few years, because I've read those, especially the finance books, and it still took me a couple of years after for me to really grasp the concept and like, wow, I can leverage my money, I can leverage my time. And so even after you meet or read them, a lot of people still don't take action on that type of stuff until you come across an instance in your life. You're like, wow, this actually applies from that book I read 3 years ago. Maybe I should start working on it now.
Did you ever have one of those moments where, things just started to click? There was like something that just, you're like, no, this is the time to start doing it?
Last year, actually, about May of last year, I had this moment of, I wasn't really happy with what I was doing, wasn't really happy with what I was producing. And so it was a collection of what have I done to benefit myself and the people around me, and look at myself in the mirror and saying, I was meant to do more.
What daily habits or rituals do you have?
Some people have a 5:30 a.m. alarm type thing. I don't really have to set an alarm. I work from home during the day. So I get up around 7 or 7:30 with the wife. She goes to work. We usually either do some type of devotion in the morning, or we go out and get coffee, and then she goes on her way and I head back to the house and get what I need to get done. Usually try to drink some water, brush my teeth. Nothing crazy, no weird rituals like other people may think. It's not, and some days it changes. Some days I may sleep an extra 30 minutes. It's just kind of how I feel for the day.
Nice. So you kind of have a relaxed morning ritual.
Yep. I have a relaxed morning ritual. A couple times a week, I shoot out emails to my subscribers. I'm usually shipping stuff that I've been flipping. That's what I'm big on. And yeah, it's my typical morning. It's nothing like stressful. I used to get up at 6 a.m., leave the house by 7 and get to work. But luckily I'm able to do stuff for my own now. So
awesome. Great relief. And the time you save not having to travel, get dressed, all those little minutia that they add up.
Oh yeah, it adds up to a ton of time. A 9 to 5 is really like a 8 to 6 if you have a commute.
Yep. Yeah. Plus the time getting ready and, wash your clothes the night before, make sure you got your breakfast all prepped. Yeah.
Right.
That's a really cool thing to be able to have.
No, for sure.
If I were to ask your best friend, what is the one thing they would say you need to work on the most and why?
My best friend, what would he say? Probably being able to respond to people faster as far as text messages and phone calls. Sometimes I put it off because I get busy with other things and I say, oh, I'll respond to that later. And then I realize 24 hours later or 48 hours later, I never responded. So that's something I've been working on getting better, but that's probably what they would say.
Yeah, that's not the worst one to be lugged down by in this society where it's more communication from more vectors than we've ever dealt with in, human history before.
Right.
So, you're not alone and it's okay.
Yeah.
What are you most curious about?
Lately, it's just, I'm more curious. I'm currently reading Cash Advertising, and I'm very interested in what runs through people's minds, what makes them buy something, why are they buying it? Is there a deeper meaning to it? Why do they have these goals? And that's what I'm trying to draw out of people. Like when I come across people that say, I want to make $1 million, why? Why do you want to make $1 million? Is there a deeper root to that? Does it represent financial freedom, or does it because other people are doing it? And then I'm trying to draw a deeper meaning out of it, because if your goals don't have a deeper meaning, when you reach those, then they're really unfulfilling.
I
So
love
it's really
that.
trying to find what people tick.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. You have this huge, media machine that's, or not even media, it's a marketing machine that's there to sell and advertise and dig into your psyche. So if you figure out the hooks that got into somebody, that's cool. It's kind of a back engineering way of figuring out, well, if those hooks and got in this way, what does it say about you?
Right. And so when you can figure out how people think, what makes them want to buy something, how do you word it that way? You know, the world is yours if you want it. I'm not trying to be greedy and make the most money, but if I can word something in a way that gets them excited about what I can offer them, then I see no problems with that.
What was one of the more embarrassing, humiliating, or humbling experiences of your life?
This was the question that I was dreading the most. Okay. So I believe I was probably 19 or 20. I was home from summer break. I'm pretty sure. Maybe I was a senior in high school. I can't remember. It happened a while ago. And my brother and sister played tennis. So I took them to the tennis courts um, around in the neighborhood. And we just start playing. And I go to hit the ball and I stop immediately because I crap my pants. Not only did I crap my pants, I'm wearing white shorts.
Worst
So
case scenario.
I stop and they I just tell my brother and sister, I'm like, we have to go. Like, we got to go now. And they're like, why? I'm like, we just have to go. And so I start to run up to the car and they just lay on the ground laughing because they've seen what's happened. So that was probably one of the most humbling, embarrassing stories I have. And that's one that I don't really share. So now everyone gets to hear it.
Yeah, you know what I'm finding in this? It seems that the most humiliating, embarrassing experiences that people have are when they're young, and usually through some completely uncontrolled circumstance, bodily function, tear of fabric, and it hurts us once. And then I love that because, I almost feel bad for people who haven't had that experience. They haven't, had that, edge shaved off where when something else happens, yeah, I shit my pants in front of my family. It's okay.
Yeah. So like now, like if something embarrassing happens, like I just don't care. Like I'll laugh about it. They'll make fun of me. I'll make fun of them for a crappy ex or whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, at the time I was like, I can't believe I did this at 18 or 19 years old.
What is your greatest fear? How or did you overcome it, if at all?
I used to fear death when I was younger. But when you come to the conclusion that death is inevitable, you kind of find other things that maybe scare you. And what I've come to realize, it's not death that scares me, it's leaving the earth, realizing that I didn't try to reach my full potential. And so that's why I have this saying, average is the enemy, and it's the sign behind me. That's kind of like my motto, my something I say on a daily basis.
That's a good mantra to have.
Yeah.
What qualities do you most admire in a man and why?
Their ability to not give a shit about what people think. That's one. I think that's a superpower. It's something I've worked on over the past year and a half. Being able to be strong in their beliefs, but also be willing to listen to those whose beliefs are different from theirs. And also just being a man, like just taking ownership of your choices that you've made, you know, being able to control your reactions to things that are in your control and out of your control, and just overhaul having a mindset of no excuses.
I like that. That's a good tagline. A mindset of no excuses.
Right.
Do you think that holding yourself accountable, do you think that that helps like improve your place in the world?
I completely 100% agree. I think that's the problem. One of the main problems we have in society. We want to put the blame on other people. We want to put the blame on the president. We want to put the blame on our parents. We want to put the blame on our boss, our employer, our job. But really, we chose. I mean, there's some things that we didn't choose. But in the end of the day, if you take control of your life and say, my boss is a jerk. Well, I chose to work there. That's my fault. If I don't like my boss, I have one of three options. I can continue to complain, which people are going to get tired of hearing me complain. Two, I can look for another job. Or three, I can just take a suck it up pill and deal with it. People, there's so much negativity and blame, and you see it through, you know, mainstream media. And that's why I don't watch the news. I can't stand the news. Don't watch it. Don't care about it. I get a few tidbits on my timeline to keep up with major current events, but I don't consume my time with news anymore. It's mostly negative and blaming at who's at fault. No one wants to take responsibility for their actions. And I think that's just the main problem. I think if people actually just took control and said, well, I made this choice and this was the result. Now I know in the future, I think the world would be a better place, to be honest.
So when you talk about taking a suck it up pill, do you think that there's situations that you just got to kind of grind it out through until you're on to a better level? Or, is there something more to it?
I think it's just dependent on the situation. I mean, I've had jobs in the past where I was unhappy and I did my best not to complain about them because it was a job, it was paying the bills. And so what I did was, instead of wasting energy on complaining about it or thinking about how miserable I was, I used that negative energy and created it into positive energy and creating different sources of income, to where when I got let go from the job, I had multiple sources of income and I didn't have to worry about anything. So instead of complaining about it, I used that to and leveraged it to my advantage.
Nice. So you redirected the time and the energy.
Exactly.
Who were, or are your role models or a most positive influence in your life, and why?
I would say it's my mom and dad. Probably something that a lot of people say. My parents were married for 14 years. They got divorced when I was in 8th grade, I believe. But obviously, divorce isn't a great thing, but they had the best type of divorce, I guess, possible, because, things didn't work out between them, but they always put me, my brother and sister first. So they still love and respect each other. They always stayed close together. The farthest we lived away from my mom or my dad was 15 minutes.
Wow.
We shared time equally. I was at my dad's house, like Thursday to Saturday, and then my mom's house Sunday to Wednesday, or maybe it was vice versa. When we come home to visit for the holidays, they both get together. We all have Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner. We hang out. And so being able to put their kids first showed a lot to me as a kid. And also, they both worked hard. My mom is a talented artist. She was able to get through dental hygienist school right after the divorce and graduate with extremely high grades, and she does well with that, and she does her painting. And my dad's always been a hard worker. He's done well for himself, and he's getting ready to retire in the next few years, so I think he deserves that time off. They've always given out great information and great advice. Whether I chose to take it or not is another story, but they've always put us first, and that's something I've always respected from them.
Did you notice, because that's phenomenal, because that's not the average story of divorce. There's too many times that you hear about parents using their kids as weapons or, tools, and putting them in the middle somehow. From your perspective, did you see that reflected in other people, the negative of that versus the positive for you, and like just having them put you first, as that's amazing that you were within 15 minutes of them, your entire life.
Right. I see it all the time. I coach hundreds of athletes.
Mm.
And so tons of people, either their parents are divorced or one parent's not in their life. And, I'm not a parent yet. Hopefully soon I will be. But in my mind, I'm like, if two people created this human being, which in itself isn't a miracle, why wouldn't you put them first? Why would you leverage them to try to draw hate or for them to pick favorites? When in reality, you know, when you can have a mom and a dad, or a mom and a mom, or a dad, however that all works out, when you can have them raise a child together, whether they're together or divorced, but in a civil way, they're going to have a more positive experience. So, like a lot of kids that I knew, their parents were divorced, they got into some bad stuff. I was typically a pretty good kid. I didn't feel like I was being, ignored or leveraged in any way. They made sure that didn't happen. So I definitely had the most positive experience you could have out of a divorce.
That's cool, because, especially now that you're coaching so many, young people, you can really take that knowledge and tools and give them those tools. Because, I mean, if you weren't getting it, doesn't mean that it's gone. It
Right.
means that it can come from another vector. It doesn't have to be the parent side. It can come from your coach, which, in a lot of cases, this, you become a role model in a way that they haven't had before.
Right. So that's something I constantly remind myself. I'm at the gym 6 days a week. So every time I go in, I do my best to become a better coach in a sense, so I can be not just a better coach to them, so they can learn more, grow more, be more successful, win more, but to also teach them life lessons that I've learned, because I'm not just trying to mold them into the best athlete they can be. I'm trying to mold them to the best person they can be. Because when it comes to team sports, it's not just a lot of things we teach and coach don't just relate to the actual sport, it relates to real life. And I don't want them, going out to the real world without information that I potentially could have provided them. So maybe down the road they say, "Oh, you know what? Coach Joe said that one time. Maybe I'm not going to do this or get into this situation." If I can make a tiny impact, positive impact on their life, then I'm happy.
What institution of society or structural aspect of modern life would you change given the chance?
Education system, it's a joke. We've been teaching kids for hundreds of years the same way. Sit in a classroom, listen to a teacher, you learn basic skills, and you go off to the college level. And unless you're going to be an engineer, you're going something medical, physical therapist, doctor, nurse, whatever it may be, I think college is kind of a big scam. I did 4 years in college. I got a degree in exercise science. I graduated only to find out I could have pretty much done the same thing studying for a 3-month certification. And so really the whole education system is teaching you to be an employee and not to actually think for yourself. I could go on and on about this, but I think about the classes I took in high school, your basic English, your math, your science, and then your first 2 years of college, you're taking practically the same garbage. And I think about those 4 years in college, I learned a few things, but times were changing at that point, and I don't see any skills that are being utilized for what's happening now. No affiliate marketing, no social media management, no, they have entrepreneurship programs, but they're so basic. Like, get into like running Facebook ads, get into click funnels, nothing specific or finding your niche or creating a brand. Nothing. It's all so general that, you go to, you spend 50, 100K and get a business degree, and then you go work a $40,000 salary job. Was that what people actually envision for themselves? And I think that the education system has just, not that I can blame the education system, but that's what I would change. I think it just sets people up to be employees rather than to think for themselves and actually take a risk on themselves, because the cost of education has been so high, they can't afford to take a risk.
Do you think that's a product of things moving faster and faster, or more something like they're following the carrot and going after the money instead of the end goal of improving a person's life?
We could get real conspiracy theory. I think that's how the government wanted the system in the first place. You control how the people think, you control what they're getting educated on, you control whatever you want. And it's nothing new. The US is nothing new. It's been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's not an excuse.
No, but there is a reason that the bell rings, and it's because factories had bells and workers, and you need to sit and do what you're, told, sit in a line, do what you say, assembly line workers. It kind of spooled out into, trying to train the best employee. You're right. It would be kind of strange if they didn't take that and, upscale it into the college system.
Right. And so if you think about it, if you're 10 years old, you're probably in fourth or fifth grade, and you're having a hard time focusing on what the teacher's saying, and you're creating these really random ideas like, oh, I want to be the first man on Mars, or whatever it may be. It could be something ludicrous, or it only sounds ludicrous to what everyone else is talking about. They assume that kid has ADD because he can't focus, when in all actuality, the education system is kind of killing the creativity and trying to conform into, like, you need to think like this, go to school, go to college, get a job, work for 40 years. Hopefully you have enough money saved up to enjoy your last 10 or 15. What type of life is that? Doesn't sound exciting to me.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, actually. What mechanism, whatever it is, whether it's spiritual, driven by man, what motivation, whatever thing that pushes that forward, that makes corporations continue to, damage the environment and inflict suffering and, paying people non-living wages and these things. And I wonder where that comes from and how it continues to manifest. It's a pickle.
Yeah, no doubt.
What is the most courageous thing you have ever done or seen in your life?
I've got two little stories for that. I used to camp a lot when I was a kid. I would go with my family, and there was a campground we used to go to a couple times a year. And one time I went down to actually go fishing, and I saw these two people in this small little boat actually went down too far down the river and actually ended up on the falls part. And they were actually stuck. I don't know how long they had been there. So I actually ran to go find help. They called the fire department. It was a whole big ordeal. A couple people almost ended up drowning. Luckily, they didn't. That would maybe be one of the more things that I thought at the time was courageous, because I saw it. So I just ran as fast as I could to find someone who could help. And then the other time actually was when I almost drowned. I was in Boy Scouts. I was backpacking in Virginia. I think I was 14 at the time. And all the trails, go over creeks and everything. But that summer had a ton of rain. And so the creeks would get over flooded, which kind of turned into fast rushing water. And I'm crossing the creek with the rope, and my foot slips. I had my pack on. Luckily, I had it unclipped, and I start floating down, bobbing. Felt like I was about to drown. I was sucking in a lot of water, and a guy in the troop actually ran and actually got me out. Ran across the river, got me out on the other side. So that was a life-changing moment, and that showed a lot about that individual himself, because everyone else was just kind of standing there. But he said, screw it, I'm going.
I'm assuming you were pretty scared at that point. Like if you think you're drowning, it's the next step of this might be it.
Yeah, and I that was the first time I didn't feel like I was in control in water. I've always been, anytime I go swimming, anytime I go to the lake or whatever, I felt like I was in control, but I didn't have control. So not having control and bobbing up and down, gasping for air really freaks you out.
Did your life have any unexpected twists or changes after that? Because I hear this sometimes from people that have near-death experiences, that their life, whether through their own perspective or just, odd synchronicity, changes or has something enter their life that just almost seems profound.
I don't know if I had any weird changes, but I've become more aware of my surroundings, more like watching out for other people when I may be in a similar situation.
Oh, it made you
I
more
have a
compassionate.
Yeah. So I typically, if let's say I'm at the beach and I'm in the water hanging out, I'm constantly looking around, making sure other people, nothing bad's happening to them. I have that type of, I don't want to say presence, but I remembered what happened to me. So if I could return the favor to someone else, if something were to happen, then it'd almost be like my pay it forward.
No, it's beautiful because that's exactly what the gentleman who saved you was doing. He noticed that you were in trouble and took action. So yeah, to have just the foresight, just to put that in the world, put your radar out there is a beautiful thing. Because even if nothing happens, there's at least somebody there who, if it does, you've got a hero. You've got a safe, there's a safety line somewhere that could be grabbed.
Right. Agree.
What rule do you have for yourself that you never break, and why do you think that is important?
I don't know if it's something that I would never break because you have your good days and bad days, but I do my best to wake up each day and just be thankful for being alive. I think each day's got opportunity. It's a chance to whether I can get better, I can meet someone new, I can make a positive impact on someone else. And that's how I try to live each day. Time is limited. Time's our greatest asset, whether people realize it or not. And I don't want to waste a day. Some days are going to be better than others, but my good days greatly outweigh my bad days.
I like that way of thinking. People like to think of, not renewable resources, but, fixed resources, whether it be oil or, a commodity that is unlimited. But you're right. Time. I mean, your life, it is finite. There is only so much and there will only be so much. You can't get more.
Right.
Well, Joe, that was the end of the first 13 questions.
Awesome.
That was fun. I'm looking.
Man, I enjoyed it.
Well, we got more, so we're going to be doing some bonus questions coming up. And after we're done with the bonus questions, if you don't mind, I'm just interested in getting your perspective, see, how it was answering the questions. But before we get to that, everybody, thank you for joining us for the show. If you'd like to know more about Joe, you can go to his website. All the information is going to be in the show notes linked here. And of course, if you guys want to hear the bonus questions coming up, some of the 20 plus guests that we've had in the past, you can go to 13questionspodcast.com, become a member, get access to the communications forums from TJ Walker. You're also going to get access to our community forums. And of course, you're going to get weekly journaling prompts sent to your email if you do choose to sign up for that. So, the other thing that's kind of cool that we're doing is if you have a podcast that you want to record, in other words, a 13 questions, somebody like Joe, somebody that you have in your life that you want to have answer these 13 questions, you can go ahead and do that. We'll help you with the audio quality. We'll edit it together and we'll put it in the stream for you. So many wonderful interviews, the wisdom that people get from their fathers, their grandfathers, the things that are passed down that are reflected in these questions. It's not unique to Joe. It's not unique to me. Everybody has these. So if you know somebody that's got that thing that just makes you want to know more, interview them and share the wisdom with everybody else. All right, my rant's done. Joe, you ready for the bonus round?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Joe, what would you tell your teenage self?
Take more chances. Plain and simple. I played it kind of safe as a kid. I wish I would have, I can't even remember some of the ideas I had, but I wish I would have just gone for them. Sometimes I felt like I was a little bit too cautious, so now I'm taking more chances as a 30-year-old.
I wanna holiday. I wanna holiday. Yo, what? 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 I wanna holiday. I wanna holiday. Yo,
Why
what?
is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why your suicide rates on the rest so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why? I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians and use labels? Now that's racism.
I wanna holiday.
Why?
I wanna holiday. Yo, what? I wanna holiday.
Why?
I wanna holiday. Yo, what? I wanna holiday.
Why?
I wanna holiday. Yo, what? I wanna holiday.
Why?
I wanna holiday. Yo,
Why is
what?
there innocent people locked up for life, while some people can't say nothing nice? Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why. And why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why. And why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on wrecking these fat beats? And teachers don't make more than professional athletes. And why? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why?
I wanna holiday.
Why?
I wanna holiday. Yo, what? I wanna holiday.
Why?
I wanna holiday. Yo, what? I wanna holiday. I wanna holiday. Yo, what? I wanna holiday. I wanna holiday. Yo, what?
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.